10. Print Hello World. 20. Go to 10. Welcome to the second episode of the Hello World podcast. My name is Sean Wildemuth and I'm your host. The Hello World podcast is where you can hear from some of your favorite developers, authors, and speakers about how they got started in this business. We go way back to their first computer, their first code experience, and their first job. I had a lot of fun in this episode talking to Chris Woodruff, or Woody as we call him. He has a degree in computer science from Michigan State University. He has been developing and architecting software solutions for almost 15 years and has worked on many different platforms and tools. He's a community leader helping in such events as Day of .NET Ann Arbor, West Michigan Day of .NET, and of course Code Mash. He's also instrumental in bringing the popular Give Camp event to Western Michigan, where technology professionals can lend their time and development expertise to assist local nonprofits. As a speaker and podcaster, Woody has spoken and discussed a variety of topics, including database design and open source. He's a Microsoft MVP in Visual C#, and it was recognized in 2010 as one of the top 20 MVPs worldwide. You may have heard him on his popular podcast, Deep Fried Bites. Welcome, Woody.
Hey, Sean, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome to the brand new podcast. You're going to be number 2 of
I'm honored. Yeah.
So I want to, the focus of this is sort of where you got started and how that all worked. When did you start doing programming? How old were you?
Oh, I was 11.
Wow.
Yeah, 11 years old. It was somewhere around 11 or 12. I can't really quite remember, but right around the time I moved back to Michigan from New Jersey. So it was right about that time.
And did you have a computer at the house? Was there one that the family used, or?
So I had 2 computers. It was kind of strange. I had 2. I had a TRS-80 that I bought. I saved up, mowed a bunch of yards and saved up and got that. That was an old Radio Shack computer, and you hook it up to your TV and... Are
you really going to call it a TRS-80? Aren't you going to say what it's really called?
Trash 80.
Yeah.
Trash 80. Yeah. So, it was a interesting little device. It even had the cassette recorder to save your code, and you had to use leaderless cassettes and everything. And then shortly after that, I found and I bought my second computer, and that was a first gen Apple II.
Nice.
And it was so old, and it didn't have lowercase. It couldn't put in the 80 column card. So it didn't have a slot to expand from 40 column to 80 column. And it also didn't have lowercase characters. All that it could show was uppercase characters. So when you were using WordStar, which was the big word processor back then, and you wanted a uppercase letter, it would show the character inversed.
Oh, that's funny. Because
when it got printed out.
Back in the BBS days, we used to make fun of the Apple II guys because they were always shouting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so everything was... When you printed, everything was lowercase, but it would show up uppercase, and it would be the inverse. If you saw an inverse character, then that was a true uppercase. So that was my second computer, and that's what I learned. I learned BASIC on the Trash 80, and I learned Apple Soft BASIC and also Pascal on the Apple II.
And what'd you write back then? I mean, you were 11.
Games.
Nice.
So on the Trash 80, you could design these little sprites, which would allow you to kind of move around the sprite, and you could program in a way to know when another sprite intersected with another sprite. So when two sprites intersected, you could, I don't think it was event driven, but at least you could figure out when they did. So if you had like a missile sprite and you shot this missile sprite from your, I don't know, tank sprite or plane sprite or whatever you wanted, and it hit the opponent, and you would know that. So they were just simple games and stuff like that. And yeah. So then it just kind of moved down from there. My brother and I bought an Apple GS, if anyone remembers that flop of a computer back then.
That was a fine machine. Come on.
That was an awesome machine. Awesome. It just didn't sell, and it never got a lot of software for it.
Wasn't that the last one before the Mac?
It was.
Yeah.
It was. So that got brought out at the same time the Apple Lisa got brought out.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep.
So, you were programming games, you were a kid. When did you get your first job in software?
After college. So I'll tell you a dirty little secret. So about between 13 and 14, I don't think I touched a computer until college. I mean, other than school.
Sure.
So I took computer class, and we did Turbo Pascal on like Apple IICs. I think that's what they called them back then.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I didn't actually do much programming besides high school, like a couple years of high school programming class. Kind of got into athletics and did sports and kind of chased girls and yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, well, I mean, I guess it was good. I wish I didn't do it back then, but I did.
Well, and most of us that did the reverse, that were, holed up in our rooms for high school playing with computers, would have rather been chasing girls. So, you have to pick your poison.
I know. And I don't regret it, but if I kind of knew then when I know now. But yeah, so I actually didn't get back into programming until I went to Michigan State into the engineering program.
And was the engineering program for computer science, or were you thinking about becoming an electrical engineer, civil engineer, something like that?
Yeah, so I originally was a mechanical engineering major, and I was taking thermodynamics, which is the most boring class ever in the history of engineering. And I also had to take all engineering students had to take a Fortran class at Michigan State. So you take this class, and I think you had like one or two big assignments. And the big assignment I remember is you had to write a simulation of a forest fire manager. So you had all these forest fires, and you had to program a way to put them out before they spread and stuff like that. The interesting thing is, so this is kind of before PCs. Well, not before PCs, but kind of before mainstream PCs, but after card programming. So, in the old days, you had to program on cards, and you turned in your card, and they ran your program, and then you had to come back and get your printout. So in this Fortran, you programmed everything in Fortran. You submitted the Fortran code to a batch process, and then a couple hours later, you had to go to the computer center and get your printout results. And it was very strange, but you know what? I loved it. And I hated thermodynamics. I hated mechanical engineering because, to me, it was a bunch of rules, very hard rules, because you're dealing with matter. And with software, I could do whatever I wanted to. It was more like an art form. It was, I mean, it was scientific, but it was also artistic. So I gravitated over to that and changed majors, and kind of lived in labs for the next 2-3 years.
Nice. And so you left college, you had, your head full of Fortran mostly, or?
No, mostly C, C++.
Nice.
Yeah, with a little Lisp and Smalltalk, but mostly C, C++.
And was that what your first job was in?
No, I'll tell you, my first job was very underwhelming. It was interesting. I mean, I'm getting paid, but I went and worked for a consulting company in Detroit, and so at Michigan State we were using Solaris, Spark 4s, big 25-inch high res monitors that were like $25,000 just for the monitor, and just expensive workstations. And so I went and got a consulting job and had to work on basically Pentium, like the first generation Pentiums, on 14-inch monitors that were like 640 by 480. And yeah, and I bought my first laptop after that was my first, and I had never owned a computer during college because I didn't need one. Everything was done on the Unix machines, and so it wasn't a need to have your own computer. So I didn't buy my own computer since I was 11 or 12 until I was 22, 23. Wow. And I bought a laptop, a 486 DX100 laptop.
That was a powerful machine at the time.
It was, and it was expensive. It was $3,500.
And were you doing C++ and C for the consulting firm?
No, originally I came in and I was doing Power Builder.
Nice.
Which was like a 4G programming.
I remember it well.
Yeah.
Too well.
and so I was doing that, and then the VP of the company, the VP of technology, came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to a seminar for a new programming environment. Do you want to go with me?" And so myself and another person who were kind of on the bench at the time in between projects went to this demonstration of Borland Delphi, and saw the Borland Delphi demonstration, and I had Turbo Pascal from high school, so I kind of knew Pascal pretty well, and so we had a project come up that was using Delphi to do some Windows software. And so after about 3 months of doing Power Builder, I got into Delphi and did that for 8 years.
Wow.
Yep.
And so, was that a comfortable place for you? Was it just what you had to do, or were you one of the Delphi, or I'm sure one of my friends is going to get me for not saying Delphi.
Delphi, that was the European, yeah.
That was the argument, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. It was.
It was that sort of, were you one of the big fanboys around it, or was it just the tool that the clients were coming in with?
No, I loved it, man. It was .NET. It was the grandfather of .NET. So if you knew who you probably remember who created Turbo Pascal and then Delphi.
Well, Mr. C#.
Exactly, Anders.
Yeah. What I really liked about Delphi was that you could get like 34 different colors on a data entry form all at once, because that's my memory of Delphi.
Yeah, well, I mean, it had so many good controls. And the VCL, which was the visual control library, was really the thing that turned into the .NET framework. I mean, the .NET framework was really, if you take a look at it, was really, everything was based on the experience that Anders brought over from Delphi and the VCL. I mean, people may deny that, but if you took a look at both of the control hierarchies, they almost match 1-to-1.
Sure. Sure.
So
There's a when they built .NET, they certainly had a lot to learn from VBX and OCX as well as VCL. Those were the three very popular.
yes.
I remember when component-based development, the article that shook everybody when that was all happening, saying secretaries are going to write code and the software development career is over because everything's going to be so easy. You just drop a bunch of controls and it'll work. And Delphi was sort of the poster boy for that.
Yeah, until you had to actually do kind of fill the gaps.
You mean actually write code?
Yeah. So whenever we interviewed for Delphi programmers, we always had about 10 questions that we would ask. And the first four, mostly if you had worked with components and just dropped components on and connected them and everything, you could probably get through the first four. And then we would progressively get more and more, and we would start getting into the OO aspect of Delphi and the Pascal, the object Pascal behind it. And by question 7 or 8, we would know. I mean, most Delphi programmers, just like sadly, most VB programmers and web form programmers, they drop some controls down. They know how to connect them up to do some basic stuff, and then they let things go. Which, you know what? If you have a simple application, then you know what? That's all that you need. But we were trying to find people that could go beyond that and do great stuff with the tool.
Sure.
So yeah.
Did you have any mentors early on that really influenced how you worked, whether that was, maybe the style of code or how you managed time or anything like that?
Yeah, I had some mentors, and you know what? I'm really bad with names, so I've forgotten all the mentors in my past. But there have been a number of people that I learned a lot from a consulting side of how to act like it's consultant, to developers, to people that I looked and respected for their technology prowess. So yeah, and just also people that just taught me how to when you make a promise, keep it. If you have a problem, raise the flag and let people know that you're having a problem right away. Don't try to be, I'll say, a tough guy and fight through it, because it's a lot better to admit that you're having a problem, get some help. And so there were a lot of things coming out of college that, you think you know everything, and you got a chip on your shoulder, and you got to learn to kind of knock that chip off and work as a team.
That's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
So when you left your first job, what were the circumstances? Did you have a better offer, or were you looking for new technology?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. It was a girl. So
it's always a girl.
It's always a girl.
Just like
it's
losing
always a girl.
your computer skills when you were in high school. It's always the girls with you.
So I'll tell you the truth. My wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, I met her in college. She went off to Seattle. She actually lived in Issaquah and Redmond. And her parents had moved out to Seattle when she was in college. So she went out there to go to grad school. And so I got a job in Detroit, and we were doing a long distance thing. And
That's always hard.
I know. And so she got an internship at Weyerhaeuser, which is a big paper and lumber company that's based out of Seattle. And she was working for a spinoff. So Weyerhaeuser was spinning off a company for the exciting world of baby diapers. And she went and relocated, and the spinoff was relocating to Atlanta for their headquarters to be located closer to their manufacturing facilities. And she decided she wanted to go to Atlanta. I quit my job, found a job at Sprint down in Atlanta, and worked for Sprint for a little bit.
Nice.
And hated it. So,
Well, Atlanta or Sprint
uh,
or both?
I liked Atlanta. I liked Atlanta. Atlanta's a nice city.
Caveat: I live in Atlanta,
I
so he's
know you
being a
do.
little
I
cagey.
know. No, I do like it. And I still like getting back there. Now, I went and worked for Sprint, which was like a big IT shop. And so I got there and I've been doing consulting. So I had been working 80, 90, 100-hour weeks on projects that needed to be done. So I get to Sprint and literally I may have had 20 hours of work a week.
Wow.
And I
So
kept
you were
asking
bored.
my manager, do you have anything else for me to do? And after about 2 weeks of me badgering him, he literally just said to me, go and make yourself look busy. And so I had books I read, I did other programming, I learned different stuff, and made myself look busy and decided it wasn't for me. So I kind of went off and, I got married. My wife had a good job. She had health care, good health insurance. And I just flopped around from contract to contract and startup to startup and learned what I liked, what I didn't like, what kind of teams worked, what kind of teams didn't, what type of management style I thought worked. So I probably had, in 4 years, I probably did 8 to 10 different contracts or worked at startups and just kind of had a lot of fun.
And you like that sort of short, learn a bunch of stuff new, learn an entire new domain. That you're probably comfortable with that when you were working at the consulting company in Detroit, right?
Yeah, I was, and that's what I gravitate to. I mean, some people like having ownership of a product for many years and having that stable life cycle of working on it and maintaining it. I like taking an idea or helping people with an idea, taking it to a point where you can hand it off to a person that can maintain it for a long time. So I'm more the creator and the person that can kind of go from nothing to something. That's what I enjoy doing.
Nice. I think that's reflected in everything you do in the community and the work you do with Deep Fried Bites, and you like being in the middle of everything.
Yeah, I don't like to. I just don't like to be bored, and I'm not saying that that's boring work. But for me, it is. But I do respect people that enjoy that having ownership of long-term projects or products that will be around for many years.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast. A very interesting story where you came from. It's different from some of the other folks I've talked to.
Yeah, I think it's a little different, but I think I always say I was a delayed geek, so I didn't get my geek on until I was in my 20s. So
it doesn't matter when it starts.
Nope. And it worked out for the best.
And do you still have your Trash 80?
I wish I did. I don't know what happened to it. I think I probably sold it or gave it to someone. I actually wish I still had that old Apple II. That probably could have been worth something now.
Uppercase and all.
Uppercase and all, yep. Only 40 columns, yeah.
Well, thanks again, Woody. This has been the second episode of Hello World Podcast. Thanks for joining us.